Hey fam, tonight we're going to be talking about 4 huge myths about suicide and being suicidal and why they are so detrimental and dangerous to people's lives. Before I get into it, I just want to say this video is all about beating stigmas, erasing stigmas, because stigmas can actually make it worse for people who are suffering with being suicidal, who are suffering with suicidal ideation, intention, and just thoughts in general. I hope this video tonight lets you realize that your stigma actually has an impact on someone's life. For those of you out there who knew someone who committed suicide or you love someone who committed suicide, I want you to know you're not the reason why they left, but you can be the reason that someone stays. Hopefully, this video will give you some insight as to what being suicidal is like, and it'll also guide you on how to properly be with someone, be supportive to someone who is going through suicidal intention at the moment. I spent probably half of my life being suicidal, albeit I'm 25 years old, and it wasn't until recent years that I actually am not suicidal anymore. I was suicidal basically from age 12 up until age 22. So 10 years, not exactly half my life, but definitely a very, very big portion of my life. The first myth is that suicide is selfish. I'm here to tell you today that it is not selfish. I can't tell you how many times I heard about how selfish suicide was growing up, and that the fact that I was struggling with it and that I didn't care about anyone in my life. I didn't care about the people I loved so dearly. Here's why suicide isn't selfish. Number one, a lot of people who are struggling with feeling suicidal feel like they would lessen the burden. They would give others relief and joy if they died because they feel like a burden. They feel like such a mess. They feel so broken inside that they feel like their loved ones' lives would be better off without them. That's not true. No one's life is better off without another person. That is absolutely awful. We all have a purpose of being here on this earth. We all have a reason to be here, and we are all meant to find joy and love and peace while we're here. However, many who are struggling with being suicidal feel that death would be more peaceful than the turmoil that they're living in right now. I know when I was suicidal, I was so depressed and anxious and terrified. I hated myself. I think that's a huge thing. Our society sets us up to hate ourselves, and when we hate ourselves, we feel like we can't do anything right, and then we just lose all hope and worth, and we become hopeless. We feel worthlessness, and this is dangerous. I also suffer from bipolar disorder, so I had my mental illness working against me as well to bring forth feelings of depression and anxiety. Sometimes the pills I was on for my bipolar disorder actually caused suicidal thoughts too. So I dealt with everything going on there. I was suffering so much though. As a teenager, I would cry in my room every single day after school. On weekends, I could barely get up in the morning, but I couldn't sleep at night. My heart was always racing, and I was always feeling doom and fear. It plagued me, and I was suffering so much that I thought ending my life would bring me more peace than waking up every single day to this. It's like living in hell, but you're not even dead yet. So when I say suicide isn't selfish, I mean it. These people are suffering so much. I suffered so much that it wasn't, I wasn't looking at it as I'm hurting the people I love. I looked at it as I'm such a mess. I'm helping the people I love, and I'm such a mess inside. I'm so broken inside that I would bring peace to myself. The second myth I'll talk about today is that suicide is a choice. You might be thinking, hey, these people make the active, conscious choice to go ahead and kill themselves. But it's not an easy thing. Suicidal thoughts are often like a disease. They come into your brain and they take over. When you're in the midst of hopelessness and depression, anxiety, fear, and you just feel worthless, thoughts can come in and just take hold of you, and it's not your choice. No one wants to die. Yet, we want to die when we're overtaken by suicidal thoughts and feelings. Being suicidal is not in itself a mental illness, but it is a side effect of mental illness and many medications. Suicide can also be caused from awful circumstances happening around a person, things that they have no control over. No one would say one day, I just want to die. I think I'll take my life today. No, that has never happened. I had a professor in college who thought suicide happened because people just wanted to take back control. They thought they were in control of their bodies, so why not kill themselves? Kid you not, I had a professor who told me she disagreed with suicide, like it was opinion, like it was a choice, like someone wanted to be suffering. Suicide is not a choice. People are suffering so much when they're going through suicidal moments in their lives, whether it's from a medication side effect or from external circumstances or from your mental illness. No matter what is causing the thoughts to manifest and the feelings to grow, none of these things are a person's choice. Suicide is not an easy choice to make. These people don't want to die like how other people may see it as. These people want to live, but their life has become so painful and just dark and broken every single day that they have no more will or anything in them left to keep going. Have you ever been heartbroken? Have you ever lost something so important to you? Have you ever been so sad that you could barely lift your head off a pillow? Have you ever been so angry or broken? Have you ever suffered like that before? Think of the time in your life when you were experiencing the worst emotional and mental pain you've ever experienced, ever. I don't care what you were going through. Imagine that. Okay, now imagine living with that pain every single second of your life. Every day when you wake up to the moment you fall asleep at night, if you're lucky enough to be able to fall asleep at night with all that pain. Would you want to keep living? And whether you say yes or no to this question, imagine suffering every single second like that. Suicide is not a choice because the suffering is not a choice. And oftentimes, people see death as more peaceful than the turmoil they live in day to day. Death seems like the only option to people who are suicidal. I know, I've been there. The third myth I wanted to talk about is people often believe that suicide is done because a person is weak. I just told you how much these people are suffering with their mental illness or just their innate emotions and mental health. Listen, my mom has been through cancer twice in her life. She has looked death in its face. She has also suffered from other major surgeries and ailments that almost took her life as well. I, as someone who's had mental illness, has looked death in its face 3 times in my life. I almost committed suicide at 3 different moments in my life. And let me tell you, living through that kind of depression and fear and brokenness every single day, living through it is not easy, and it takes a lot of strength just to live with those feelings from day to day. People who are suffering with feeling suicidal or ideating about it or any of it, they're the strongest people I know. They're just as strong as people who are going through cancer, who are going through major physical illnesses. Mental illness is just as important as physical illness. It is just as impactful, and it can destroy your life just as much. Don't ever undermine someone's suffering because you can't see it on the outside. Don't ever undermine someone's suffering because they have enough strength in them to say they're okay when they're literally dying. That in itself shows the strength that someone must walk through every day while being suicidal, enough to put on a front, to put on a smile. That in itself is painfully strong. That in itself is heartbreakingly strong. People who are suicidal are anything but weak. The last myth I want to mention about suicide and people who are suffering with feeling suicidal is that for others, it is okay to be silent. That is the biggest myth, and that is the most detrimental myth that there is. In the beginning of this video, I told you you can be the reason someone stays, but if you stay silent while you know someone is suffering, if you let stigmas rule your brain versus compassion and care, that's not good. That's awful. You're contributing to the suffering and potential death of someone. There is always something you can do for those who are suffering in your life. And even if you don't know anyone who is suffering, or you don't know if anyone in your life is suffering, the worst thing that you can do is stay ignorant to these stigmas, is stay ignorant to the suffering that anyone could be going in. This is why I always say create compassion. This is why I tell people to be kind no matter what, to never be angry, to be patient and kind and loving for people and to people. We're humans, we all make mistakes, but if we can do our best each day to be kind, to be compassionate, to be respectful, to listen when we don't want to listen, and to be understanding when it goes against all of our personal beliefs. Giving compassion to people in need, even when we don't know they're in need, is perhaps the most powerful thing we can do to make sure someone stays before they leave, before it's too late. This is why it's so important to know these stigmas and to erase them. This is why it's important to move past these stigmas. If you or someone you know is suffering with being suicidal, I want you to take a look at the description in this video, because it's going to have resources, it's going to have the hotline number, and it's going to have resources of websites that hopefully will help you. There is always something more we can do, even if it simply starts by erasing the stigmas many of us still have. You are not the reason someone left, but you can be the reason that someone stays. Create compassion in the world around you. I named my channel Create Compassion because our world needs more of it. Thank you for watching this video, and thank you for taking the time today to learn more about what it's like to be suicidal, or to hopefully you found some peace if you are suicidal from watching this video too. Hopefully you were able to relate to it and to know you're not alone, but that there is hope and there are people who've been through what you've been through, and life is more beautiful because they kept living. Thank you again for watching. I want you to know what an outstanding human being you are, and I hope you have a day that's just as outstanding as you are.